Welcome back. Well, dominating headlines this week is Australian journalist Peter Greste, who, along with two of his Al Jazeera colleagues, were found guilty by an Egyptian court of spreading false news and supporting the blacklisted Muslim Brotherhood. He was sentenced to 7 years in jail. Well, for more on this, let's return to our co-host, Mediaweek's James Manning. James, there's been a lot of coverage of this story, obviously, throughout the week. Could it be having any impact on Egypt?
Oh, look, I would doubt it, especially what we're saying here in Australia.
Yeah.
But and it's sort of gone a bit quiet, hasn't it, after the first couple of days? And, the Egyptian president came out and said, look, he won't intervene in the judicial process, which makes you think, well, they're going to have to take it to an appeal, which sadly could take a little while, which means he'll be spending more time in jail. He's already been there for a while. But it's just a terrible case, isn't it? And you've got to hope there's a lot going on behind closed doors in terms of, negotiation between governments and people trying to get something going. So let's just hope there's something there. Good news to report. I feel pretty confident he would get out.
Yeah.
But I think it's just going to take time for Egypt to realise, the enormity of what they've done.
There's a big social media campaign against it as well. We've seen a lot of journalists sort of weigh in on that.
Yeah, then again, you think that's nice, but is it going to have any impact?
Is it going to have an impact on Egypt?
What they're doing? Yeah, I was just thinking that diplomacy will, at least in the short term, is the way to go. Perhaps.
Behind the scenes, we're watching. Okay, we've also seen quite a few profit warnings on the Australian share market lately, but a production house and distributor announcing one too. Yeah,
Beyond International said they could be down as much as 20%. Right. When their financial year closes. They make probably most famously the program Mythbusters, which sells all around the world, and they've linked this downgrade to the cycle of production they make. They sometimes make 18 episodes in a series over 18 months. This time they're doing 12 over 12 months, and it depends where the invoicing period falls for that show, so that's going to affect them. They're a bit of restructuring and some deferment of some unnamed projects too.
So potentially just a one-off for them?
Yeah, they think they'll be back on track by 2015. It's quite a well-run little business, about $100 million turnover there, so yeah, they do pretty well. All
right, another profit warning we saw recently was for 10, but shares have had a minor rebound lately. Private equity interest.
Yeah, that's very optimistic for them.
A minor
rebound. We had a look at the graph, didn't we? It's still trading under, 30 cents or something, or around in that ballpark, you know. It's, very speculative buy, wouldn't it? Well, I still think it's a good asset. It's a free-to-air television licence,
Yeah.
There's a lot of work done there to rebuild it, to make it competitive against 7 and 9, which carve up about 80% of the TV market. But I think, with the right expertise and a little bit of investment, you could edge it higher, make some money maybe.
Well, they're involved with some dating websites, and they've teamed up with Fairfax as well.
Yeah, look, that RSVP and Oasis. RSVP was wholly owned by Fairfax, so I think 10 had about 40% or just under half of Oasis. They're merging. Very light on detail, this announcement so far. It's had a value of about $90 million put on it. Presumably they'll be trading as one entity when this takes effect, but as yet no name. Presumably, again, they'll continue to trade as RSVP, and maybe the Oasis name will disappear.
Now, speaking of the ABC and SBS now, there's been obviously that review going on. What are some of the suggestions we're hearing out of that so far?
Yeah, well, people are looking at suggestions of how both broadcasters can maybe increase a bit of revenue. ABC has built up a substantial catch-up TV business with their iView offering, which gets a lot of eyeballs. A lot of people use it, and we've seen in the past some shows almost do better on iView than they do when they're shown on the free-to-air. So they're saying, well, why can't the ABC charge for this? Putting ads on the ABC is a bit of a no-no. There's be a big backlash against that, I think. This is perhaps an intelligent way of them raising some revenue, either as a subscription model or a low cost per view, something like that. And the other one was SBS maybe selling some more airtime. I think they're allowed 5 minutes every hour. Could they be given some more, maybe generate a bit more revenue? But you have to carefully manage that. I think one of the attractions to advertise on SBS is that it's a very uncluttered environment.
Yeah.
You're only going to be one of the few minutes every hour with ads, so if you increase that, there is a bit of a downside too.
Okay, and we were talking about newspapers obviously earlier in the show with Mal, and the Hobart Mercury's celebrating an anniversary. Is it 160?
160, yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Davies Brothers, that was a family business when it launched, was held by the family for a long time. News Corp got in towards the end of the last last century. Don't press me on the year, but it's still trading as Davey Brothers, two parts of the business, I think. So yeah, they're big celebration down there, and had 2 weeks of special supplements in the newspapers.
Wow, 160 years, that's a long time.
It is.
All right, the US Supreme Court has handed traditional broadcast media a victory by ruling online TV startup Aereo violated copyright laws with its TV service. Now, the ruling could shut Aereo down or force it to enter licensing deals with content owners, potentially increasing what it must charge customers for the service.
A big win for broadcasters against Aereo, the startup that was offering broadcast signals to mobile devices for a small monthly fee. The Supreme Court ruled against it, saying it was violating copyright law by using tiny antennas to broadcast TV content to paying customers without paying the broadcasters. Horizon Media's Brad Adgate.
It's really a slam dunk for the broadcasters. I mean, Les Moonves said that right now, Aereo was kind of like a pimple on the face or something. But if this, if the courts favored Aereo, I think, they would have rolled out their service throughout the country. And not only that, but I think the cable operators would have done the same thing. I mean, there's nothing to stop a Cox or a Charter or some other big cable operator to create the same model Aereo did, and they would also be bypassing the retransmission consent fees.
Chet Kanoja, Aereo's CEO, called the decision a massive setback for American consumers, adding, "Our work is not done." The case puts Aereo in a precarious position at best. Penn Law professor Sham Balganesh.
Aereo can sit down with the broadcasters to start talking about a licensing model. Of course, with a decision in their favor, the broadcasters are going to have a significantly stronger position at the table. And of course, Aereo can lobby Congress to get a specific exception or some kind of a compulsory license or a negotiated bargain introduced by way of an amendment to the Copyright Act.
Aereo backer Barry Diller, who heads IAC Interactive, said, quote, "It's not a big financial loss for us, but I do believe blocking this technology is a big loss for consumers." Gary Shapiro, president and CEO of the Consumer Electronics Association, warns this decision won't save the broadcasters.
And if broadcasters chose to beat up on Aereo rather than embrace it, they may come to rue that day. And that's what this is about in part. They're making a lot of money off retransmission consent. It's approaching $4 billion a year and growing. And at some point, the cable industry will say, you know what, we really don't need that local news. We have another alternative. There's other ways of doing it, and consumers don't really care.
The court made it clear this decision applied only to Aereo and not to cloud-based services where content is stored on the internet on servers from companies like Google, Microsoft, and Dropbox.
Time for a quick break, but coming up on Media Week, all the details of the latest TV ratings.